Hi everyone, and good Erev Shabbos to you, and welcome to our Pre-Shabbat sermon and song in honor of coming Shabbos. And today we are together with our guest Matt Chack, who's not our guest anymore, but Matt has been with us for many times in the past. And we have, as you see, a little new background with Matt. Matt's back with us in Bucks County. Originally from Bucks County, lives in New York, but I guess is going to wait out a little bit this pandemic here with us in Bucks County in Newtown. So we're going to have Matt introduce and begin this program with a little lively song. Matt has got his microphone, and he was always great, but now with our improved sound, I am sure that this will be even more enjoyable than ever. So Matt, why don't you welcome everybody with a nice, beautiful Shalom, Hevenu Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. It's great to be back in Newtown, Bucks County. Let's start off with a little Hevenu Shalom Aleichem to bring in Shabbat. Hevenu Shalom Aleichem. Hevenu Shalom Aleichem. Hevenu Shalom Aleichem. Hevenu Shalom, Shalom, Shalom Aleichem. Hevenu Shalom Aleichem. Hevenu Shalom Aleichem. Hevenu Shalom Aleichem. Hevenu Shalom, Shalom, Shalom Aleichem. Hevenu Shalom Aleichem. Hevenu Shalom Aleichem. Hevenu Shalom Aleichem. Hevenu Shalom, Shalom, Shalom Aleichem.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for that beautiful welcome. And we're going to hear more from Matt soon after we finish our sermon. So get prepared. Prepare yourself for some lively melodies and nice Shabbat inspiration. My friends, there was once a fellow who was driving a car in Southern California, and he's driving on the highway and he sees the lights behind him. He sees the lights behind him going off, and there's a cop and pulls him over, and he was like all rattled. The cop comes over and says, I actually noticed that you're wearing a seatbelt. And we have this competition in California that if a person wears a seatbelt, you win $5,000, and I'm happy to announce to you that you are the lucky winner of $5,000. Guy says, wow, great. So the cop says, well, now that you have your $5,000, what are you going to do? He says, I have $5,000. Now I could afford to go get a driver's license. Cop looks at him, and all of a sudden the woman who's traveling with him shouts back, don't listen to him, he's drunk. Okay, it's getting interesting. And while this commotion is going on, there's a guy sleeping in the back seat. He says, I knew we wouldn't get too far with this stolen car. And to top that all back, the cop hears somebody knocking in the back out of the trunk, and he says, "Por favor, excuse me, but have we crossed the border yet?" My friends, there's so much going on today. There's so many stories and sub-stories of today, Friday, as we enter Shabbat. This is a Shabbos called Shabbat Bevorchim. It is a Shabbos that we blessed the coming month of Sivan. The coming month of Sivan is itself a special month. It is the month that we receive the Torah, that we celebrate Shavuos. And everybody, not everybody, but many of my friends have gone down to the shore, even though the weather may not be so nice, because it's Memorial Day weekend. So there's so many layers, so many things going on. What are we going to talk about today? We'll try to cover all our bases, but let me begin with Shabbat Mevorchim. It is a Shabbos that blesses the coming month. We introduce the coming month. Now Shabbat always blesses the days that come after Shabbos. Shabbos elevates everything of the past, transforms it into an energy of blessing for the future week. And when there is a Rosh Chodesh, when the new Jewish month begins, this Shabbat takes on that much more meaning, because it's even blessing more than just the Shabbat, just the coming week. So I want to begin with the concept of blessing. And I want to offer every one of us, and every one of you, and everyone in this world a blessing. That we should all have the strength to go through this critical time in our life. And for those of us who have children, we know it just got even harder. Although some things may be opening, but hearing about the closures of camps does not make it easy for the children and our teenagers in this world. So it is going to be a long haul over the summer. And we need strength. And as we discussed in our class last night, we need joy. We need joy to help us break through this barrier. And the blessing is that we can find the joy that we truly need and have the wisdom to be able to navigate this in a healthy way, in a proper way. So I hope that this Shabbat Mevarchim blesses this coming month in a greater blessing than ever, because probably it's one of the most singular, most challenging months of Sivan that humanity has ever faced. And therefore I'm sure that God gives us the challenge and will give us the blessing, and may we all recognize that blessing in the coming days of the week and the coming days of the month. Now I want to talk a little bit about Shavuot. We'll talk more next week as well, but the topic of Shavuot is not something you can cover in one lesson, in one sermon, or even in 1 year. Shavuot is a critical, important festival. In fact, many people don't even know about the festival of Shavuot. They know about Passover, Hanukkah, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. And in fact, I had a friend who we were studying with one of our many classes this week. And he asked me, what about the Jewish holidays? I said, guess what? There's one coming up. I said, which one? He says, I tell him Shavuot. He said, what Shavuot? So you never heard of Shavuot? He says, no. I asked him, let me ask you something. What's the most important day on the Jewish calendar? What's the most important day on the Jewish calendar? He thinks, not for too long. He says, Yom Kippur. I said, Yom Kippur is the holiest day of the Jewish year. But what's the most important day of the holy year? And there already, he kind of was lost. I said, Shavuot, the festival that we're going to be observing next Friday and Shabbat and Saturday, is the most important day of the Jewish calendar. Without this day, you do not have a Yom Kippur. Without this day, you do not have a Passover. Without this day, you do not have a Rosh Hashanah. So you may have many holy things throughout the year, but without what happened on Shavuot, we don't have those days. Because on Shavuot is when we received the Torah, is when God revealed himself to humanity and gave us the direction and charged us with a mission with which all those holidays help us to observe. So what is so important about Shavuot? Shavuot is the festival that defines our identity. Who are we as a Jewish people? What is our mission, both generally and specifically, as a Jewish people and as a Jewish person? The Torah is so important that, in fact, Jewish people are called the people of the book. Which book? Not Fiddler on the Roof, before it became a movie. The people of the Torah. And in fact, when you trace back the beginning of the destruction of the Jewish people in Europe by the Nazis, the first things they did was burn the books and burn the Torah. Because it's not just the books that we read. It's the direction, it's the inspiration, it's how those books define what we are that is so troublesome to the people who tried to destroy us. So before they took us to the crematoriums, what went up in smoke were these books, because the books is what's so critical for us as a Jewish people. Torat Chaim is called the Torah of life. It's the oxygen of our life, as we've discussed in the past. And when you remove the oxygen, then unfortunately you remove life. So what happened on Shavuot? What happened, how we approach receiving and understanding the role that the Torah plays in our life is not just about the celebration of a holiday, but sets the tone for everything that we observe that follows. And in fact, there's a very interesting statement by our sages that is at once challenging, but on the other hand, very enlightening. And it tells us that Ein lecha ben chorin ela misha osek b'Torah. There is no truly free man other than the one, or there's no truly free individual other than the one who's engaged in the knowledge and study of Torah. Now think of this. You want to really be a truly free person? Study Torah. Does that make sense to you? Well, it doesn't make sense to me. Because the first thing you know that the Torah tells us is you can't do this, and you can't do that, and all these different restrictions, and even the things that you have to do. You have to do it this way, and you have to do it that way. On Shabbat, you got to do this. On the holidays, you got to do this. On Yom Kippur, you got to do this. Every day, you got to eat this and sing this. Is that called freedom? Is that a totally free person? The more you study the Torah, it seems to be the more restricted you are, the more obligations you have. What did our sages mean when they told us the truly free person is a person who studies and is absorbed with the knowledge of Torah? Now, in Hebrew, there are two words, and I'll try to use the English language to express this thought, but I think I've got the two words that we need. The term used in the sage's statement is ben chorin, a free person. In Hebrew, there's another word called chofshi, which seemingly means the same thing. You're free, but it's really not the same thing. Chofshi means unrestricted. You have no restrictions. Ben chorin means you are free. Now, being unrestricted and being free are two different things. Unrestricted means you have zero responsibility. That is chofshi. You are an unrestricted person. You have nothing that obligates you to do anything. A free person is different. A free person is a person free to live and pursue their life the way they want and the way that is meaningful. And usually, when a free person will pursue their life, they will have many restrictions, self-imposed restrictions, but restrictions nonetheless. Take, for instance, an athlete. You know, not everybody, many people are into sports, or if it's not a sports, let it be maybe a performing artist. Is Carson Wentz, is Fletcher Cox, or if you're like music, is Itzhak Perlman or Yo-Yo Ma, are they free people? I think we'll all say, sure. They're all free people. In fact, they're very wealthy free people. But do you know what kind of rigid regimen they have to go through? Do you know what an athlete has to do to live their wish, to live their dream, to live the freedom that they want? There's so many restrictions on their diet, on the way they exercise, on the way they live their life, on the way they take vacation. They have freedom to pursue, but because they are pursuing something, they have to define and give themselves different restrictions in order to be able to live that freedom. They are a ben chorin. Oh, yes, they are, because it's all those restrictions that they have self-imposed that allows them to shine and blossom. An unrestricted person doesn't blossom, doesn't shine. In fact, living an unrestricted life, as you can all imagine, is very unhealthy. To live a life of chofshi, unrestricted, and having nothing in your life leads to many unhealthy consequences. In fact, a life of freedom is a life of freedom leaves you a life that is healthy mentally, psychologically, and physically. So if you want to know the difference between an unrestricted life and a free life, add one little word: unrestricted from. Unrestriction takes you away from any definition, and not having any definition is not holy. Freedom is freedom to. It's freedom to do something, which by definition gives your life definition. And this is what our sages tell us. We have a gift of Torah, a gift of guidance and inspiration and knowledge, not to allow us to live an unrestricted, unhealthy life, but it's the definition of life that is the most healthiest for your soul, for your purpose, and for your meaning. And therefore, ein lecha ben chorin, if you want to truly be free to pursue the purpose of your life, the gift of Torah is the greatest gift, the gift of life. And to put it a different way, there's Torah and there's medicine. Science defines the physics of living. Torah defines the purpose of living. See, to me and a believer, there's no conflict between science and Torah, because we're talking about two separate things. The physics of my life, I go to the science. The purpose of my life, I go to Torah. And in fact, they work hand in hand. So when I have an issue and I need to deal with the physical aspects of my life, I go to the doctor. But then I go to Torah. I go to prayer when I want to tune in to the spirituality and the spirit of life. So let's talk a little practically. Tachlis, as they say in Yiddish. You're a Jew. You're a member of the people of the book. So ask yourself a question. How does this book define you? How does it impact you? That's a simple question. And I'm not looking for an answer. It's something we each have to answer ourselves. And there's a very simple litmus test. Is how many times a day, during the day, are you impacted by the fact that you are a Jew? And this could be positive or negative. How many times a day are the 12, 18, 20 hours, whatever you're awake, even when you sleep, but when you're awake, how many times, how many moments of that day is impacted by the message of the book? Does your Judaism impact you when there's a Seder, when there's Yom Kippur, or when Bubby makes matzah ball soup, or when you're making brisket, or even when you're studying the Torah 10 minutes a day or 20 minutes a day? Or is it something that impacts you in the entirety of your life? If the Torah is a spark of life, that doesn't mean you study it every moment of the life, but explore its messages so that it impacts and allows to guide every aspect of your life, not just when you're engaged in the Judaism, but when you're making decisions in your office, or you're interacting with other people, or you're just enjoying life. There's a purpose that could be impacted by the Torah of life. And I want to conclude with a story and then a little word or a little idea of Memorial Day, which is connected. But although we're talking about Shavuot, this is actually a story that happened right before Rosh Hashanah. But it's very important for the message we're trying to share today. There was a Hasidic master named Rabbi Moshe Leib of Sasev. And he was a very holy man, a very prominent individual in the Hasidic movement. And back in the earlier years of the Hasidic movement, there was a lot of opposition to this new concept of what we'd call spiritual Judaism. And there was people that would say, this Hasidic master, this Hasidic Jew, they're a little abstract. They're in the heavens. They're like singing and dancing and talking Kabbalah, and they're like detached from reality. And in fact, when it came the week before Rosh Hashanah, when in Jewish communities there's a custom of saying slichot. You get up real early in the morning before prayers and say even other prayers that prepare you for the holiness of the day, of the Rosh Hashanah. And it comes the first day in the community synagogue, and Reb Moshe Leib of Sasav isn't there. And one of the opponents say, see, they're not serious. They can't even get up early in the morning to do prayers. They are into the spiritual clouds. And there's this whole uproar. Where is he? He's not even here. And the Hasidim in the shul are saying he's holy, and they're saying he's not holy. And one of the Hasidim of his students says, he's in heaven now. He's in a heavenly place. And that's just it. They're all started to laugh. Heaven. Now they're talking about a person who's alive being in heaven. These people are really whacked. But there was one what we'd call moderate opponent there. Center right, let's call it. And he said, you know what? I'm not going to judge where Reb Moshe Leib is. I'm going to try to see where is he. I'm not going to judge him. So the next morning he camps out right at the door of Reb Moshe Leib, and he earlier to make sure he sees what's going on. And in fact, very early in the morning, even an hour before everybody else is getting up, he sees Reb Moshe Leib is walking out of his door. But the scene shocked him. He saw him walking out in overalls and like a wood chopper with an axe in his hand. This was really bizarre. He says, I got to watch and see what's going on. And he keeps a distance, and he slowly follows Reb Moshe Leib through the forest and through the edge of the forest till the end of the forest. And he sees that Reb Moshe Leib takes an axe and is chopping wood and puts it into a bundle and goes to a little hut there at the edge of the forest. And he knocks on the door. He knocks hard, nobody answers. And a little old lady after a while comes to the door. And Reb Moshe Leib says, here, I have some wood for you. And this little old woman tells him, I would love to take your wood, but I have no money to pay. I'm freezing. It's cold. I can't afford anything. And Moshe Leib tells her, don't worry. You'll pay me back one day. At this point, just take the wood. And she says, I would take the wood, but I don't even have strength to carry it and to light the fire. So Reb Moshe Leib says, I'll come in and light the fire for you. And as he walks in, this spy is watching this whole thing, and he goes closer to the door and wants to observe what's really going on. And Reb Moshe Leib lights the fire, lights the wood. There's a beautiful, nice fire in the fireplace. And more than that, he takes the milk, he warms up the milk, cooks up some eggs, gives this woman some breakfast. And what happens next startled the spy. And as he is serving the food, he hears how Reb Moshe Leib is saying the Slichot prayer. The same prayer that everyone ran to the synagogue early in the morning, he was saying while he was making sure this old woman had wood for her fire and had food to eat. This amazed him. And then he just ran right back to synagogue, and he makes an announcement. And he says, I have news for you. I disagree with all the Chassidim. Reb Moshe Leib never went to heaven. Reb Moshe Leib went higher than heaven in the acts of kindness that he did for this woman at the edge of the forest. And this, my friends, is the message. The message is that our Jewishness, our definition of Jewishness, is not just how do we go to synagogue, which we can't do today. How do we study Torah, which we could do today? How do we sit at the Seder table? How do we sit in synagogue for high holiday services? Those are wonderful things. But if Torah is Torah of life, it impacts you, how you take that holiness and go higher than heaven. And higher than heaven is coming back here into ordinary things of earth, of our life. Influence with the purpose, the mission, the life of that Torah wants to give us. At that point, you're truly a Ben Chorin. You're truly a free person, living not with restrictions, but with definitions of how to impact that life. Judaism is not just about one little thing. It's a perspective. It's an overall commitment. Not a commitment to God, but a commitment to living what God wants of you. And not only what he wants of you to give God benefit, but what he wants of you to bring benefit to the world. And as I promised, I'm going to conclude with a little anecdote that is relevant to Memorial Day, in memory and in honor of all our fallen soldiers, that I think continues on this same message. I have a friend whose partner has a 90-year-old dad. And 90-year-old dad is a veteran, and he was actually one of the soldiers that stormed Normandy. And my friend says that he had a beautiful, great relationship with his friend's father, and they would have chats. And one day he says, John, I want to thank you for all your bravery. And John tells this young man, bravery, what's bravery? You don't know what it is. That had nothing to do with me. Guy says, I want to thank you for your patriotism. Patriotism? What I did has nothing to do with patriotism. He says, John, what can I thank you for? For your loyalty, for your dedication, for your sacrifice. None of these things pleased 90-year-old John, the veteran. And he was stunned. And he says, let me tell you. And I'm going to quote. And John, the old soldier, tells this young man, you've got it all wrong. Let me explain. A veteran is not a brave or loyal or dedicated or any of these words. A veteran is just someone who, at one point of his life, wrote a blank check payable to the United States of America. No bravery, no patriotism, just a blank check. That's what a soldier is. A soldier doesn't just commit one aspect of their life. It's a total commitment, which reflects itself and expresses itself in all the various details of being a soldier. And my friends, this is what our Judaism is about. God gives us the blank check, and God gives us the overall purpose, the overall mission, the gift of being a true Ben Chorim. Not a chofshi, not really a unhealthy, unrestricted life, but a healthy life of definition, of freedom to live our purpose and his objective for us in his master plan and everything that happens. So Shavuot is coming this week. We have some time. Reflect upon what it means, not just to be the people of the book, but to be a member and a recipient of this book. Because every year on Shavuot, we receive that mission again, and we receive that blank check. The blank check happens to have many different words in it, but we receive that great gift of life that oxygenates every moment. And the more of the moments of our life that is inspired and influenced by that great gift, the greater our freedom becomes to us, and the more meaningful we become, and the more productive we can be in everything that we do. I want to wish you a good Shabbos. I want to wish you a meaningful Shabbos. A Shabbos that not only blesses the coming month, but prepares us for this coming month, because we are preparing ourselves for the most important day on the Jewish calendar, the day that it all began thousands of years ago, and the day that it will all begin for us again this coming year. Have a good Shabbos. Now, Matt, are you there? Let me get Matt on our screen, and Matt's going to give us some nigunim. He's going to give us some music. He's going to let me take this tchotchkes off. He's going to give us a little bit of inspiration to digest this message and to help us incorporate this in everything that we do. So Matt's going to sing for us. Which song?
Yedid Nefesh.
What are we starting with?
Yedid Nefesh.
All right, I'm going to put myself on mute so there's no echo.
We're going to start off with the Kabbalistic Yedid Nefesh. This is the melody by Shir Yaakov, who I believe lives in upstate New York now. The final verse, Higalena ufros chavivi elai, Sukkot Shlomecha. May God shelter us with his peace. Igale, gale, gale. Froze, Habibi, You can sing with us if you know this part of the melody. It goes like this. Try that with us.
Here we go. Thank you very much. And we are, I think, going to conclude with the very exciting song of...
Shalom Aleichem.
Right, Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem is the song, the melody that we sing to welcome the angels of Shabbat. And when we talk about welcoming angels of Shabbat, we reflect on what angels truly mean. And angels are not the flying winged creatures that are depicted in books and in art. Angels are special energies that come to our life throughout Shabbos. And the Shalom Aleichem is to make us aware of that energy so we can absorb it within us. Because absorbing greater spiritual energy allows us to bring greater energy to the world around us. So I know Matt has a very exciting version of this, and we will tune in and listen. Before we go to that, I just want to remind everybody that all of our programming throughout the week is on our website, virtualjewishcenter.org. The schedule's updated every Sunday morning. You go there Sunday morning. It begins with our class at 10 o'clock about positivity bias. And if anybody wants to go to other recordings that we've had throughout the week in the past to catch up on the different lessons, you can go to our website, jewishcenter.info/recording. I try to make it as simple as we can. Jewish Center, you want your information, so it's jewishcenter.info and /recording of all the classes and sessions that we have throughout the week and that we've had over the last few weeks and a couple months now. So jewishcenter.info /recording to catch up. The virtualjewishcenter.org for everything that's going on, classes and sessions from myself, Rabbi Weinstein, Hebrew School, the Rebbitzins, cooking classes, teen programs, so much going on. As I tell all my friends, Lubavitch of Bucks County isn't reopening because we never closed. We're functioning full force on virtualjewishcenter.org. So we will conclude now with the great singing and song of Shalom Aleichem with the version of Matt Check. And then we'll come back and close it off in a few minutes. Put myself on mute so you don't...
Feel free to sing along if you want to. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyonim, Melech Malachei Hamlachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyonim, Melech Malachei Hamlachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem. המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא רוחם לשלום מלאכי השלום מלאכי עליון ממלך מלאכי המלאכים הקדוש ברוך הוא ברכוני לשלום מלאכי השלום מלאכי עליון ממלך מלאכי המלאכים הקדוש ברוך הוא צאצכם שלום Shalom, Shabbat Shalom.
Thanks so much, Matt. I'm so happy we reconnected. You bring so much positive energy with your music and your songs, and I'm sure we'll be meeting again for other of these pre-Shabbat sermons. All those that are on the broadcast next week, we will have our sermon Thursday before Shavuot, because Friday and Saturday is the holiday. But just keep on checking our website, virtualjewishcenter.org, and you will always be informed of what is going on and all of the latest activity. For now, I want to wish you a good Shabbos, a meaningful Shabbat, an enjoyable Shabbat, a Shabbat that brings blessing to all of our lives, to the lives of our community, and blessing to the world at large, that we have the strength and the joy and the wisdom to be able to persevere, navigate, and as we've always been saying over the last few months, not only to get through this, but to grow through this into stronger and better people. Good Shabbos.